Let's get ready to rumble!
All right. Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, in a week in which it might just be Netflix, because my name is Tosin. I am the host up somewhere in the Midlands. Joining me from the Isle of Wight. It is the Isle of Wight today, isn't it, Shaun?
No, I'm actually in Bournemouth now.
Okay, in Bournemouth.
I'm in Bournemouth at the moment.
It's really hard to keep track of this man. This is Shaun Harris. He is in Bournemouth this week.
And I'm in Bournemouth this week.
Yeah, you join us.
I'll be in Leamington Spa on Saturday.
Really?
Yeah.
What's happening in Leamington Spa?
Oh, I got a party. I got to go to. So.
Okay, that's like half an hour up the road from me.
All right.
Yeah. So okay, but you catch us if you're listening to this. You catch us in a week in which Thor: Love and Thunder has been released. Well, it was released today, pretty much. Yeah, it was released today, and that means that as usual, as has become. You know, when we started this show and we thought, you know what, Netflix cinema, that would be a great idea because we're always going to the cinema, we're always watching all these things. And it was one of those things that until we started the podcast, it never occurred to me that there were times when all of a sudden there was nothing to watch in the cinema. It never occurred to me, but now that you're actually doing a podcast, you're like, hang on, there's whole weeks where Netflix is going to win. Because what we usually do is we usually go to the cinema, we watch a couple of things, we stay at home, we watch a couple of things on Netflix and other streaming platforms. We rate them all out of 5 and then we figure out at the end of the day, where was the money better spent this week? Now, and in weeks like this, you're like, well, it's going to be Netflix because there's nothing in the cinema. Because Marvel have gone to the point, you start realizing that there's all these different trends. Like when Marvel released a new film, everybody else runs scared.
Yeah, seems
Marvel released a new film, and then for 2 weeks you have nothing new in the cinema because people are just letting them have their fun. And that is the case because Thor: Love and Thunder has been released. Shaun, you have seen that.
I have, yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, but because I selfishly want to be part of the review when we talk about Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because of the way Marvel have been going recently. They haven't been having as good a hit rate as they did in the run-up to Endgame. So every Marvel movie, my cousin Ty, who listens to the show, and usually he actually refused to listen to the episode where we reviewed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because he hadn't seen it. And then he saw it this last week and he was just kind of like, oh my God. I think he was like, his message to me was like, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, no, just no. And then he went back and listened to the show where we actually reviewed that. He went back and listened to it. And so Marvel is a bit more polarizing nowadays. It's a bit more polarizing. You know me and my thoughts about the multiverse and how I hate it. And so I want to be part of that review. So Shaun, like the absolute legend that he is, has agreed to hold his fire, keep his powder dry, and wait until next week when I would have seen that film. And hopefully Holly and Sharon, who are usually with us, would have seen that film as well. They're not here with us today. So what we're going to have is instead we're just going to have a big old streaming special where we just talk about the stuff that we have watched recently. Because the truth is, if we didn't do that, if we waited for cinema to release stuff, we're never going to get around to all the stuff that we've seen. We're just never. There's going to be a backlog of stuff that we've seen that we haven't spoken about because, oh, well, it didn't quite work. So we've decided, no, whatever. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the stuff. So, Shaun, we're going to back and forth this thing. You tell me something you've watched, you review it. I tell you something I've watched, we review it. And we'll see how we go. We might get to 6 things, we might get to more. I know I have down here, I have 3 things I definitely want to talk about, and there's probably more. But let's kick off. And Shaun, tell me one of the things that you have seen that you would like to review this week.
Okay, well, one of the things I'd like to see, which it was on Netflix. It was on Netflix. And I think Netflix's forte for me, I think, are documentaries or like you know, the acting documentaries as well. Like I don't know what you call them. Do you call them like, you know, they're documentaries, but they have like a movie as well. Like they have film towards it.
Like the sort of like reconstructions almost.
Reconstructions, yeah, reconstruction. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think if you want to talk about something that Netflix does probably better than anybody else, the Netflix documentaries are something to watch. Yeah.
They really are. So this this series, it's got 6 episodes, about an hour long, and it was called Age of the Samurai, rise of Japan. So it's basically a documentary about, because Japan pretty much in the 16th century, the 1500s, was pretty much like a feudal state.
Yep.
I guess a bit like, so you had like, you know, it was all run by warlords and daimyos and things like this. So this is basically when the final episode is when Japan actually becomes a country, if you will. It actually becomes a country. So it goes through all these different warlords, and the first one is this. The first one that comes to prominence is Tokugawa. I don't know the names. I can't remember his name now. Tokugawa, I think. But there's he's like a big warlord, and there was another faction, and the warlord, one of the warlord dies, and he said he wanted to keep his death secret.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want his son to take over. But as it was, it came out, and there was a big battle, and his son lost like his whole army basically. Yeah. And there's a film by Akira Kurosawa called Kegamusha,
yes,
which is based, and I think that's based on the battle of, I think it's called Nagoshima or something like that. It was a big battle, and there's Kegamusha, the Kurosawa film, is called Shadow Warrior. It's basically the story of the leader of the clans died, and he's like a double, if you will, and takes over, but then he gets found out, and then his son. So that's all based on a battle. So you've got all these rival claimants, and each episode, you know, sort of, so it starts off when there was big clashes, and certain generals and clever generals reminded me very much of. I read another era in history that I'm really interested in is the Mexican Revolution, where there's so many people that take over at different times, so many warlords.
Yep.
And obviously there's nasty ones, there's good ones, there's things go bad for them, things basically, well, it's just all wars and all conflict and pretty brutal, some of it. It's not particularly nice. And then there's one particular warlord that manages to take control, gets allies, but then he makes the mistake of invading Korea to go into China and becomes a bit mad.
So it's all factual. It's all
factual, yeah. But the actual, there's a lot of scenes in it with samurai and a lot of battles, and then that sort of intercuts with, you know, professors and historians talking about the different leaders, different types of leaders, different battles, different things. And it's just great. And I had to keep watching it. It was one of those ones I thought I need to see how this goes. So I was really, really impressed with this. Totally impressed.
It's better than reading a Wikipedia page, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah, definitely. I mean, with the documentary, I suppose, docudramas, with the docudramas.
Yeah, they do call them docudramas, yeah.
Yeah, you get you actually get the characters. So whether they were actually look like that, we don't know. But it's obviously, if you've got the idea, you know,
they probably did dress like that, but they probably didn't look like that, yeah.
So I have to say, I was totally impressed. I thought this was really well made. A lot of insight into the different leaders, the different personalities, the different types of people, different types of samurai, and yeah. So it's basically the history of medieval Japan, I guess. Similar things to what happened. Reminded me a lot of. I guess we don't really know too much about that history because being from a Western background, or you know, we get to see our European history.
Well, if it isn't European, we don't care.
That's it. If it's in European, so it's like, you know, whereas obviously there's a lot in that part of the world, you know, because I mean, I was amazed how you never really think about Korea, but Korea was quite a developed country, you know, and then but we don't really. So this was really, really good to see because I'm quite interested in that area, and one place on my bucket list is to go to Japan. So.
Okay, Shaun, you went until do my 13-part series about medieval Nigeria. Yeah.
Yes, well, that's it. Well, that's what I mean. I mean, that with my African history, I know a bit of the colonial stuff. I know a bit of what went on in the wars. But I don't really know, should we say, the sort of prehistory before it became colonized, you know, whereas
what happened before white people showed up.
The different so there's
you see, that's the scary thing about it. I don't know that much because so much of it kind of got wiped out and got suppressed. So
But yeah,
you
I guess
so
that's it.
so
Yeah.
you have to go really digging for it, because you know the whole thing about
You're
history,
digging for it, yeah.
being written by the victors, and it's like, if we colonized you, you had no history before we showed up. You were savages who were all sniffing your own bums before we showed up. You had nothing. You didn't even know what civilization was, and we had to come and civilize you. I'm going to stop
Well,
before I
I
start getting
think
really
to me,
annoyed.
I think to me, I mean, you said it. I know we're going back a few years now, but Wakanda, I
Yep.
think, was, how if it hadn't. And I mean, I don't want to get into politics like that, but if that hadn't have happened, do you know what I mean? Africa would
I know, yeah,
probably
and
be developed and
I
be,
think that is a big part of what they did when they tried to set up Wakanda. They were essentially asking themselves, what would have happened if an African country had never been colonized?
yeah,
And
brilliant.
that's what they were trying. That's what they're trying to do. And that's a question that I could go for days
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. For
But anyway, so
days.
how many stars would we give
This is
Battle
the
for
best
Japan?
documentary I've seen for a long, long time.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm going to get this, and every episode is good. Every episode is watchable. And so yeah, so this is a solid 5, and I think this must be one of the first 5s I've given to a streaming service.
I would have to agree. I mean, I think you gave Mad God. You gave Mad God 5. That was for Shudder.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but that was more a film rather than a series. I don't think I've
oh
given the
yeah.
series
Good
quite so
point. Good
much.
point. So
Yeah,
the first series that you've given a 5 to. Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
probably true. All right, cool. And now okay, so it's over to me. Over to me, and I will take it up and talk with the thing that I have watched. And I have finished watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Now, Sean, I'm not sure if you ever saw Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but this was a. It's. I wish did you ever have you ever watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No, I haven't, but I've heard of it obviously, and I've seen it. So
Okay. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine is it's a show, and the whole idea, it's a comedy show, and the whole idea is that it's based in a police station, in a police precinct.
Toes,
Yeah.
was there a thing called Reno 911 as well?
There was a show called Reno 911.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was oh good lord. That show is probably almost 20 years old now.
Oh,
It's probably almost 30 years in. But yeah, so Brooklyn Nine-Nine is set in a fictional police precinct in Brooklyn. So there is no 99 precinct in Brooklyn, but that's where it's set in. And when you're introduced to the characters, though, this is season 7 I'm talking about. It's the seventh and final season I'm talking about. When you were introduced to all these characters all the way back in season 1, you had Andy Samberg, you have Terry Crews, Melissa Fumero, Stephanie Beatrice, and Andre Braha, and it's essentially a workplace comedy set in a police station. And I remember saying about this show, I remember saying to somebody, they were like, okay, what are the new classic comedies? And this was probably around about season 2, season 3. I was like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And they're like, no way, talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. No way, no way. But now I think it is largely accepted that Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of the gems of modern comedy. And it's quite difficult, I think, to do comedy well. It's quite difficult to do a comedy that, like, carries on and actually has something to say and all that. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine nails it. I mean, the characters that they have and the way they all bounce off it against each other. Joe Luke Trujillo as Boyle or Captain Holt. You have Scully and Hitchcock, and when you have a show and you just have a cast of characters and the characters are just perfectly formed and they perfectly play off against each other, where you
yeah.
could just sit down and watch these characters be these characters for ages. Like, I think in some of the Marvel movies, some of the Avengers movies, they've hit that balance just right, where you're like,
Yeah.
I don't care if you have a bad guy to fight. I mean, I just love hearing you guys talk to each other. And the same thing that they do with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And in the seventh season was one that was interrupted by COVID, and then Black Lives Matter happened. And as you can imagine, the public opinion about what policemen are like in America changed. So apparently they had finished filming about 4 episodes and they had to scrap those 4 episodes. And they had to go, what is this show now? Because of everything that has happened, you have the racism things, you have police brutality, you have the fact that police are not exactly the upstanding citizens that you think they are. How do we actually tackle that? And I think in this season they had a very, very difficult job to do, making a show that was a comedy with all these knockabout characters in the wake of Black Lives Matter in America. And I think they nailed it, because
Really? Yeah.
I think they nailed it because they actually go and they address a whole bunch of things to do with police brutality and police corruption and all that. And you have police officers who have been police officers throughout the whole of this show, and they say, "I can't be a police officer anymore because we're not doing anything. We're part of the problem. We can't. I just can't keep doing it." And I think that the way, but at the same time, they stay true to the characters. They bring in motifs from earlier, and because it's the final season, they have cameos from characters from previous seasons, and they bring them back in ways that that just left a big stupid smile on my face. I mean, when Chelsea Peretti shows up as Gina Linetti again, you're just kind of like, oh, of course they had to bring her back. And there's certain things that they just do in this season that just make me think, I'm gonna miss this show. I'm really gonna miss this show. And I think the Andre Brauer, because he plays Captain Raymond Holt, who you find out quite early on in the first season. He's a captain, and he's the new captain. He's no nonsense. He has pretty much no sense of humor, and so the things that you find out about him, that he's gay, he's black, he has no sense of humor, and he's like, and he's been held back in his career because of being black and gay.
But
the fact that when you get to the 7th season and you see the way he changes, and there's one particular, they have this thing called a heist, and every season they have a heist episode where all the police officers are playing a game where they're trying to outsmart each other to become crowned like the genius. And they come up with this one, the heist, and it's going to be the final heist. And the way they do it, and everybody's character motivations, and the beginning of the heist episode, the way there's a bit where it doesn't make any sense if you haven't watched it, but you end up with Jake, Amy, and Captain Holt in a bathroom, all going 9-9 at each other. And it is stupid, it is silly, and it is joyous. I'm like, this is amazing. I miss this show. I think it's great that they ended it when they ended it before it became. But I mean, 7 years, they did well. And I understand why they've done it, but it's the kind of show that if they were going to bring this back in 10 years and say, where were these characters at in 10 years' time, I would not even be mad. I would just want to see, what are they up to? What crazy stuff did they get up to after the show ended?
Yeah, I think that's it. If you get a show like that and the characters seem to work with each other, which, I mean, and you nailed it. You nailed it with like the Marvel films, because I always think like Iron Man and Doctor Strange have always got, it's a mutual respect, but it's also
there's Needle. I mean? There's like, Needle.
Like, Thor and Star-Lord. You know what I mean? They've got that. They've got that. And I think that works really, really well.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think that they've got that. Brooklyn Nine-Nine gets its characters right, get the cast of characters right, and it just nails it. And I love them for it. I absolutely love them for it. So, final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I would give it a 4. I would give season 7 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine a 4. I thought it was brilliant. So 4 stars for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And Shaun, back to you. What else have you been watching that you want to talk about?
Okay, well, I managed to watch it on Disney, because I got a friend, Nigel, who I popped round to see, and he's like a big Star Wars fan, because we played this game called Star Wars Legion, which is a bunch of us, which is like 28mm models and we had a game. And Leia died, and Han died, and the Emperor died, and everybody, Boba Fett. Anyway, but this was a series, so Obi-Wan. So anyway, the series, which is on Disney.
Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Obi-Wan.
Yes. The latest Star Wars
Obi-Wan
season.
Kenobi, yeah. So here we go. So Obi-Wan, 6 episodes, hour long. The first episode. If we could do this episode by episode, it would be quite good. I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to see it. Well, probably not for a long time. But anyway, it starts off. Whoa, this is good, man. This is good. The first episode. Whoa, this is like totally good. And the second episode's okay. Third and fourth, they sort of. Don't know. To me, they don't tie in with the actual movies. There's some discrepancies that I've got, but I mean, the action's
and I guess the problem with this is that it's supposed to tie in with the movies, because
it's supposed to tie in with the movies.
This is supposed to be set in what Obi-Wan Kenobi does in between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of A New Hope.
And the beginning of A New Hope, yeah. So yeah, and there's some bits which, when I think back to the original films, I think, wow, yeah, could that have happened, from what people have said and different things that are going on? But that's not to detract from the action and the characters, and it's full of action, so like you'd expect. but it's sort of, for me, it gradually sort of became, it's one of those ones that's such a shame, let me down.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I think that can happen sometimes. That's happened with a few of the series, isn't it? But it started off with a bang, really,
Yeah.
really started off with a bang. And just that, I mean, I would watch that first episode again because it was so good.
Okay, so now, Sean, you see, this is the thing. Because obviously this is on Disney Plus, is a Star Wars series. And so what they've been doing and what Disney Plus do with these series is that they release one episode a week. So that means that the 6 episodes, this show has been out for about 6 weeks now. So over a month. I haven't seen a single episode on it. And I'm somebody who, I would have counted myself as a Star Wars fan, but I never liked the idea of this show. When they first mentioned it, I was like, why? Why are you going back? Why does every character need to have every single bit of their life filled in? This doesn't make any sense. This is going to be, and for me, I just had no expectation for this. It's my expectation for this is so in the toilet, because I feel like it is a money grab. It is nothing new. It is going over old ground. It is, and for that, and everything I heard about this just made me think, no. They were like, Darth Vader's gonna be in it. I was like, ugh. Hayden Christensen is coming back to play Darth Vader. Ugh. Like, I mean, everything I heard about this just made me think, no, I don't want to watch it. So in 6 weeks, I have not been able to muster up any enthusiasm to press play on Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though Disney Plus has been yelling at me, telling me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm like, get lost. I'll watch Miss Marvel instead. And so what you've told me about is starting off with a bang and then it's sort of tailing off and then becoming disappointing. It just sounds like what I expected. And we were talking earlier about there being so much stuff to watch. And quite frankly, I feel like at the moment I have better things to do with my time, and I have other things to watch with my time than a retread of Star Wars and Disney just trying to steal more money from me by telling me stuff that doesn't need to be told. Because after the Book of Boba Fett, I am so close to done. I am so close to done with Star Wars after the Book of Boba Fett.
I mean,
the only thing I want to see what they do with Mandalorian in season 3, but apart from that, I'm almost out.
Yeah, I can understand everything you say. To me, it is a bit of a money grab. But then it's like we said with the actual new films. Maybe they're just trying to get a new audience. You know what I mean? They're trying to get a younger audience in and I don't think they've done enough. You know, like with the Marvel. I know we keep going back to Marvel.
Because they're the standard setters nowadays. For blockbuster stuff, they're the standard setters.
They put enough in their movies to keep the old timers happy. Do you know what I mean? They put enough. They put enough in there for people that are fans of the comics to just, there's enough there. They acknowledge the fact that there are older people and it's not totally new. Whereas I think what the Star Wars universe has done is they've sort of tried to totally, remake it. If you see what I mean, for people like us.
Well, yeah, but it's not even that. It's not even that. It's not that they've tried to remake it. And I think if let's say they were going forward and they were telling you new stories and they're trying to remake it, fine. My problem is that they're going back to stuff that has already been set up and they're trying to remake that. They're going back and they're doing stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense with what we already have. They're going back and they're messing with stuff that is supposed to be established. They're going back and they're messing with Solo, and they're trying to tell you all about all these dice that Han Solo has on the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, what the heck? I've watched like 9 movies to this point. I have never seen some dice on the Millennium Falcon thing. And then you now try and do that in Solo, and then you now try and put them in like episode 9 and try and tell me this. And I'm like, no, get lost.
You're right.
So if you're going to go forward and you're going to have like new characters and you're going to have a new world and you're going to try and say stuff, fine, but you're trying to go back and you're trying to come up with all this new stuff and new milieus and like we're trying to make things where things are dark and people are dying, but in the old world of Star Wars where things are already established. And I just think, for me, I'm just like, no. I mean, they're doing it with Andor. The character from Rogue One. The character played by Diego Luna, Andor. Yeah. He's getting his own series. And so you're going back to the stuff we already know. Forget about that.
Forget about it. Yeah, it would.
And that's why I know it's a controversial movie and I know a lot of people don't like it. And that's why one of the reasons why I still really like and respect The Last Jedi. Because if nothing else, it was trying to move things forward.
Forward, yeah,
And
no,
trying
I
to
agree,
do
I
something
agree.
totally
Yeah,
new. And,
yeah.
but anyway, I've gone into a Star Wars rant. How many stars would you give Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Okay, I'm going to give this one a 3. Okay, I'm going to give this one a 3. It started off with a bang and went out with a whimper. So,
Yeah.
and you know, my own opinion. So yeah, so 3 star, 3 star on the whole.
It doesn't sound like anything that I did not expect.
No, you're not missing anything, Toes. What you said and what you explained to me, yeah, there's other things to watch. And if I'd have known, I'd have watched other things.
The only reason I would watch this is if people came back and were like, "Oh my God, did you know about this moment where blah blah blah?" And then I'll be like, "Okay, fine, rubbish, and I have to watch it now." But so far, I'm like, no, nothing I've heard has made me think I need to watch this. All right, cool. So now we go back to me and something that I have seen. And the next thing I am bringing to the party, this is me trying to work my way through all of Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
And this is a TV show called The Afterparty. And I spoke a little bit about this last week before the show finished. And I was talking about The Afterparty. And this is a whodunit for the new generation. It is created by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Well, actually by Chris Miller, who are the guys who were behind the Lego movie. They were behind Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They were behind the reboots of 21 and 22 Jump Street. So, and speaking about Star Wars, they were originally the ones who were on Solo before they got fired because they were trying to do something too different. And replaced by Ron Howard, who gave you a by the numbers thing. And so these guys have a real I really like the sensibility. I like the way they go about doing things. They take things that you think you think like, oh, we're going to reboot a TV show from the 90s about policemen who pretend to be teenagers, and they turn it on its head. I still think 22 Jump Street is one of the most laugh out loud.
It really is. Yeah, it's great.
I was like, it does not, it did not, it had no right. It had no right being that good. It had no right being that funny. I can't believe that you've done a remake of something and you've done something this good with this. So these guys, if you tell me that Chris Lord and Phil Miller are involved, I'm willing to watch it. And this is essentially a whodunit. So think like Agatha Christie, think your Hercule Poirot, think like all that kind of stuff. And the premise behind it, the reason it's called The Afterparty is because it's based around a high school reunion. So all these guys, they go to a high school reunion, and the first thing you see when the show starts says the after party, and then this guy, played by Sam Richardson, he sort of drives up to the high school reunion. He's looking on his phone, and there's a text from somebody, obviously, who used to go to school with, who's like, "I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the reunion." And he's like, "Don't worry, this is going to be great. Nothing can destroy this night." And then the next shot you see is somebody falling from the balcony of, like, you know, one of these Hollywood Hills homes, falling from the balcony and falling all the way onto the rocks on the beach below. Then a police officer shows up. Played by Tiffany Haddish, and she is here. She's the one who's going to figure it all out. And she's going to solve this whole thing. They're told, okay, all of you people, none of you are allowed to leave. So you have all these characters, the same way you have in Agatha Christie novel. You have all these characters who are in this house, who have been in this house overnight. So she's going to try and figure out who the killer is, who's done this thing. The twist with this is that the way she does is that she gets each character to come into a room, and they tell her their version of the story. They tell her their version of the night, what happened this night. The way she says it, she's just like, I'm going to get you to tell me your mind movie. And each one of them comes in and they tell her their version of the story, but each story that they tell is like a totally different genre. So
wow.
So the first guy who comes in, she's like, "Why are you here?" Because he's the one that everybody thinks did it, because all the evidence, all the surface level evidence seems to point to this guy doing it. And then the first guy who comes in, he's like, "I came here for love." And the way he saw the whole evening is a rom-com. It's a straight up rom-com with everything, and the lighting is all rom-com-y and all that kind of stuff. And then the next person they bring in and they say, "Okay, you tell us your story." And he's like, and in his head, his version of the evening is like a Fast and Furious movie because he thinks he's so cool. Then the next person comes in and their version of the evening is like a musical. The next person comes in and their version of so each episode is like a totally different genre. Each episode is a totally different genre that plays around with it, and then you get to the end, and then you even have the whole thing where everybody's in the room, and they're like, "Okay, gather everybody in the living room, and everyone's in the living room, and then you're going around and she's saying, this is who it is, this is who it is, until you find out who actually did it. So
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds like Schmigadoon, but for films, you know.
a bit like that. I mean, there's a musical episode. There's a musical episode in this one, and so it's obviously these guys. They know they're Agatha Christie. They know they're sort of whodunits, and they're playing with that. They are playing with that whole thing of what you expect from a whodunit, but like a modern one.
Great.
And I think it's really, really good. And I think if for film buffs and such, seeing the different types of films that they are playing, there's a bit where they go all French New Wave, and it's like, and it's I've seen the different kind of film genres that they're playing with. It is great. It's wonderful. It is so much fun, and I would totally recommend the Afterparty on Apple TV Plus. It's coming back for a second season, but I'm going to see how they're going to have to do it to top this one. But the Afterparty season 1 at the moment, as we look at it,
how many episodes are there? So sorry, you probably did tell me. But...
I think it's 8 or 9.
8 or 9 episodes, right?
Yeah, it's 8 or 9 episodes, and if I remember correctly, I think they're all about half an hour.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, I don't think they're that long. And but the thing is, like, you have also different characters. You have like the jock, or the person who was a jock in high school. You have the people who are the nerds. You have the person who nobody ever notices. You have I didn't know it's really good. So I would say the Afterparty. Try it out. Right. Okay. Cool. So now we are going to.
How many stars did you give it? Stars?
Stars. 4 stars. 4 stars for the Afterparty.
Brilliant. That sounds really good. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I think it's something that I reckon on Apple TV Plus, and I reckon that both you and Sharon, and I'm pretty sure Holly would like it as well. So, Shaun, back to you for what you have seen recently.
Okay, well, I watched, which was really quick going. It was one of those short episodes. I watched Man vs. Bee.
Man vs. Bee.
again on Netflix. They're about 10 minutes. These episodes. I think there's 8 of them.
Yeah.
And basically. It starts off where Rowan Atkinson's in court and saying, oh, you know, anyway, and then it goes on to tell the whole story. And basically, what Rowan Atkinson, he becomes a house sitter. So he's a house sitter for this super rich
couple.
You know, the place is fabulous. It's like you know, all high tech and
it's like one of those houses at the end of Grand Designs.
Yeah. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. It's a bit like John Wick's house, but multiply that by 10. Anyway, so you know, it's got like all the security features. So he's really nice. He's just they go through all the things. Oh yeah, you know, this is the number for this if you want to get locked out. But you can voice activate it if you forget the number. You can voice activate it, so you can imagine what's going to happen. And then anyway, so he's there and he's all settled down and that. He's got himself some food out, and this little bee comes along. So, and each of the episodes is obviously him trying to catch the bee. He starts off being, you know, trying to be quite gentle, like we're catching it in a cup and trying to take it out, and obviously gets locked out and stuff and this whole thing. And well, I can't really say too much about each episode without giving away spoilers, but yeah, so basically it just escalates, you know what I mean? He tries different ways to do it, you know, and so you can imagine there's all sorts of things going on with things getting
I mean, the thing with this show, right, is that when I heard the title Man vs. Bee, it sounded like the perfect marriage between Mr. Bean and one particular episode of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
where in Breaking Bad, like, you know, what's his name? I forgot his name. Like Walter White. Walter White gets obsessed with getting rid of this fly that's contaminated his area, and it just escalates and escalates. But that's dramatic. But when I hear that, I think if you put Mr. Bean in that situation, that's probably what this show is going to be. And we actually started watching this. We're about halfway through the first episode, and my wife Claudia got to the point where she went, No, I can't watch it. It's all gonna go wrong. It's all gonna go wrong. It's too cringe. It's too cringe. She couldn't handle it, so she just stopped watching it. But but I can imagine it escalates. There's gonna be a lot of slapstick, and I can imagine that by the end of all these episodes, the house, shall we say, will not be in the same situation in which he found it.
Yes, basically, yes. It's like but then I'd love to give a spoiler, but I can't really. It's just like, so you can imagine, you know, like you get these heist movies where they're going after particular things, like particular paintings and particular ornaments and things, you know, and so you can imagine that, like, you know, if someone needs a particular, like, oh, is that the is that what we've got to get? doesn't look like there's nothing like the pictures. And there's, you know, like you said, well, I mean, you can obviously understand what's going to happen, but there's one bit that I was in absolute hysterics because it reminded me of an actual a real situation that I remember was in, and the expression was on this chap's face that broke this thing was just the same as his face, like, oh, do you know what I mean?
I know what you
Especially
mean.
when they've been told, especially when someone's been told, oh, you know, that's worth
that's really expensive.
Yeah, that's really expensive. That's really, you just know what's
you know what's
happen,
happening,
you know? And it's just like the face. What do I do? So yeah, and I quite sympathise with that, and I also think that some of the things he tries to do is not too silly. You know, it's like fixing things. If you're going to fix things, you've got you know, you hope you're going to, you know, do it right. So yeah, so and it was really good. It's great that the episodes are so short, and you could probably watch it all in one sitting. And it is, you know, it's quite a good fun thing.
Yeah, because whenever you try to do something like this that's a bit slapstick, it can go really well or can go really badly. It all depends on the performance and the performers and how they do it. And obviously, this is Rowan Atkinson, who is probably one of the few people in the world who I think can pull off this concept. Who can pull off Man versus Bee.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the few people in the world who can do it. But how did he do? How many stars would you give it?
I'd give this one a 4 because I really enjoyed it. You know, and as I say, it's you can watch it in one sitting. And it is quite fun, and I did have some laugh out moments, which is quite unusual for me in my normal critical head on, you know, of like.
Yeah, I know, Sean. This is the thing, like, you know, when you said that, I'm like, actually, forget watching Man versus Bee. I want to be in a room and watch you watching Man versus Bee to see your reaction to these moments. I want to see this.
Yeah. So this you know, yeah, it's a good watch. It's a good fun watch, and as I say, I did laugh. I did actually laugh out quite loud in a couple of places, and. What I mean is, they're over exaggerated, but there are situations where that type of thing could possibly happen in real life. If you know what I mean, it's plausible. It's not beyond the realms of silliness.
I mean, the setup for this show reminds me of. Did you ever see a show? I mean, you must have seen this show, but it was a 70s 80s show called Some Mothers Do Have 'Em.
Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, yeah.
Some Mothers Do Have 'Em with Frank Spencer. And there's
Betty.
Betty. and there's one episode he has where they go to this house of the future, and they're showing off this house of the future, and the final scene of this episode is him driving away, and the house is on fire, everything is malfunctioning because Frank Spencer was just this accident-prone person where everything that he did fell apart, And I always sympathize with Frank Spencer because when I was a kid, my mom used to call me Frank Spencer because she was like, you just break everything. It just goes. So when you have like something slapstick where you have somebody that just can't catch a break and things just keep going wrong around them, I'm like, yeah. I might not even be laughing. I might just be identifying hard. So Man versus Bee is something that I think I will get around to watching. So now we come on to the final thing that we're going to talk about this week, and that is Ted Lasso season 2, because I have I mean, there was a time, right, when I remember I you know how, so on this show every now and then we have ideas, and sometimes the ideas are, you know, just going to give us trouble and we don't have enough time to do them. You talk about doing your 5-minute rants about films, like spoiler rants, and we're talking about doing, like, you know, I'm sorry we didn't recognize you because we realized that there are all these pictures that Sean keeps coming up with. We invariably know the man, but we don't know the woman in the pictures of the film. And so we wanted to do like another series to sort of like give the woman her due and tell you all about. We wanted to do that. And one of the ideas that I had for a podcast, I mean, even this podcast, when we came with the idea, Netflix or cinema, I mean, we've had ideas for podcasts that we've done over the years, from they don't make them like they used to, all that kind of. And one of the ideas I had was Late to the Party, which was people are going to watch something and they're going to rave about this. And the reason that I came up with this idea was because of Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, everybody was watching that show and everybody was raving about it and talking about how great Game of Thrones was. And I hadn't watched anything. And by the time I started watching Game of Thrones properly, it was probably on season 5. And so I thought about, I could do something called Late to the Party, where I watch stuff after it's gone through the public consciousness and I go, let's go watch about this. And this is a bit like me with Ted Lasso season 2, because originally Ted Lasso season 2 was released around about the time that our original Apple TV Plus subscription ran out, and I was like, well, I'm not paying for it to watch that, even though I really really like season 1. But now that we have an Apple TV Plus 5 months free YouTube backlink card, I'm like, yeah, let's go back and watch it. And this show, I'm not sure, have you ever heard of Ted Lasso?
I've heard the name, but I don't really know anything about it.
All right. So there was a time. This character is probably is, when I was talking about. I'm surprised at what they've done with. Well, I was talking about something earlier in this episode where you're saying, oh yeah, 22 Jump Streets, and you're saying that
Jump Street, yeah.
it has no right to be that good. And Ted Lasso is a character that they came up with because there was a point when ESPN got the streaming or got the broadcast rights for the English Premier League, for the Premiership, to show in America. And they had all these adverts, and the whole idea was that there's this American football coach called Ted Lasso who ends up being in charge of Tottenham Hotspur and knows nothing about football, knows nothing about England, and he would he would be like, oh, that's Gareth Bale, that's the guy who's going to Real Madrid, right? Yeah, he's English. He's like, no, he's Welsh. He's like, Welsh? How many countries are in this country? And then his assistant coach goes, there's 4 countries in this coach. That kind of, and so it was like a throwaway gag about an American coming to take over an English football team. Ha, they know nothing. And they came up with a TV show. And they said, okay, now we're actually going to do a whole series about this American who comes over to take over a football team in England and knows nothing about football. And I remember the first time I thought, oh, for goodness sake, cash grab. This is stupid. This makes no sense. Then people started raving about this show and talking about how it was great. And I watched the first season and I was surprised. I'm like, this came from a commercial. This came from an advert. This came from a one-line thing. And they have spun it into one of the most heartfelt, kind TV shows ever. Because if you're going to sum up Ted Lasso in one word, it's kindness. So this guy comes over to England. He doesn't know anything about American football. His assistant coach is reading like a book on like the beautiful game on the plane over. They get into England, and then he's obviously out of his depth. Everybody says he's out of his depth. He goes to like the first ever news conference, and people are like, why are you here? You know nothing about football. What have you done again? Well, and they have this fictional football team called Richmond AFC. Obviously, There is no Richmond AFC. But it's like Richmond AFC, they're in the Premiership, and he has to come and take over them. And in the second, but when the second season starts up, they've been relegated at the end of the first season, so they're now in the Championship. And it's all about this is not really about the football. It's not about the football. They're essentially taking a football team and turning it into a workplace comedy. So if you're coming here for realism, there's some things that don't quite work. And there's some things that you can see this was obviously written for an American audience, but they have tried to make it as English as possible, but it's written for an American audience. Like there's one particular episode where there's a Nigerian footballer. There's a Nigerian footballer on the team, and he gets a text from his dad. And I was looking at the language. I was going, that's American language. No Nigerian that I know will use the word shill. Like, oh, you've become a corporate shill. I'm like, what the hell? No, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't ring true. But it's made for Americans, and they've got to understand it. And so it's all about the and you can see there's a character in it called Roy Kent who is so obviously based on Roy Keane. He's so obviously based on Roy Keane. And if you watch your football, if you follow, you can understand this. And they have this whole thing in the locker room and all that, and it's really, really great. And you have all these characters like Nate, who starts off the season 1 and he's like the boot boy, but then Ted Lasso realizes he knows much about football, and then it promotes him, and then what happens with that? And I think this is another one of those shows where they've just got their characters right, and their characters getting together. There's one particular scene where they have all the women in the show, not like in Marvel where it was like, totally hackneyed and it's like, she's not alone. Ta-da, look at us, Marvel, look at all the women we have. Not like that, please God, no. But they have all the women in the show just sat down in a church having this conversation, and the way the banter goes back and forth and the way they're talking, and you just think, this is just so great, and it's so supportive, and Ted Lasso is just so kind-hearted and is always trying to do the right thing. But even though he's always trying to do the right thing, the show doesn't shy away from the fact that sometimes there's bad things in life, and it's about how do you deal with bad things in life when your philosophy is to be kind to everybody and to be kind about everything. What about when people write bad things about you in the press? What about when your wife wants to divorce you? What about all these different things? And I think it is one of these shows that has a philosophy at the heart of it, and it's just be kind to people, and it is so well done that it does not come across as hackneyed. It does not come across as what the heck is this piece of nonsense. It just comes across as great. And I think Ted Lasso is one of the great shows. It is seriously one of, especially when you think about where this character came from, when you think about the fact that it's one of the great shows. And
Cool.
it's a
How
bit
many
like,
stars?
ooh,
How many stars?
four.
4 stars. 4
Ted
stars.
Lasso-
We've done
yeah.
well today, haven't we?
Yeah, Ted Lasso is a straight up 4-star show, and Sean, I think you'd like it if nothing else for all the sort of football in jokes that they make, because I reckon that this AFC Richmond it's based on smaller Premiership football clubs like Bournemouth, like Bournemouth, like Crystal Palace and everything like that, and I think it's really well done. Oh, the Christmas episode is so dang touching.
I might have to try and catch that then sometime.
Yeah, dude, yeah. Watch Ted Lasso. It is amazing.
It's like we said though, Toes, there's so much, isn't there? There's so much that you can watch. You have to really be, you know. It's like books. People say, "Oh, do you want to borrow this book? Do you want to read this book?" I'm like, "Oh no, I've got hundreds." You know.
It's essentially I've got to the point where I've been like, okay, if I'm doing something where I don't have to concentrate, I probably should be watching a TV show. I'm doing the washing up. I'm watching a TV show. I mean, it makes it difficult because I know you, like, when the football season starts, it becomes harder for you.
Yeah.
For me, at the moment, Wimbledon's on. It becomes it becomes harder for me. So but it makes it difficult. But you try and find everything. You're going to bed, you're watching something. You're going to the loo, you're trying to watch something.
That's it. As I say, when the football season starts again, it will be more difficult too, because I'll be watching, like the midweek games and things. And
yeah. So I think when we have a lull, we need to try and make as much of it as possible and try and catch as much as we can.
Yeah.
But I think that is it for our streaming special because Marvel chased everybody out of the cinemas. So our streaming special this week, and I think Netflix and Friends have won this week.
They have won this week, and they've done pretty well, to be fair, haven't they? They've had quite a good run this episode.
They've done pretty well, and even if we were going to go and say all the streaming services against each other, Netflix actually did get the highest score this week with 5 stars for Age of the Samurai Battle for Japan. So anyway, until next week, when we shall all have seen Thor: Love and Thunder, and we would have figured out what the link is between Sean's picture quiz. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about when I talk about Sean's picture quiz, please do go have a look at us on Facebook and on LinkedIn. No, not LinkedIn, on YouTube, where we will clip together the pictures that Sean has come up with for his picture quiz, where we're trying to guess what the film is, who the actors in the still are, and the new wrinkle, what is the link between all these films. Please let us know if you can figure it out. Find us online.
If you can pick the link up. There's also a link with for the guys who see, when you see Thor, it might help you.
Yep, there's a link in Thor that will help us figure this thing out. And so until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
Yep, and it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you got your podcast from. Bye.
Bye.